Hello and welcome everyone, and thanks for joining us today. We're excited to dive into the world of S/4HANA and ECC's warehouse integration and execution with David, Monique, and Sean. Today's session will explore how warehouse management can streamline your warehouse operations and improve execution. For those of you who have followed this series, we have taken a deep dive into what is different between S4 and ECC. If you missed any of our previous webinars, they are all available on Reveal's website under Insights. Today's discussion is going to be approximately 30 minutes, followed by time to ask questions. During the presentation, please feel free to capture your questions in the Q&A or chat section. And at this time, I would like to introduce you to today's experts. We have Dave Ducray, an integration advisor who leverages 20+ years of experience, diverse in manufacturing and supply chain, specializing in SAP implementations and focuses on aligning technology strategies with the business objectives. Monique, a business advisor at Reveal, brings 20+ years of experience as well, and of supply chain and logistics management experience, specializing in implementing SAP solutions for inventory and optimization. And Sean Elef, a senior partner with Reveal, who leads global supply chain optimization programs, drawing on his mechanical engineer background, develops tailored solutions and improves efficiencies for clients worldwide. All right, everyone, settle in. We're in for a great session today. To get the ball rolling, Sean's going to kick us off.
All righty. Well, that was a great introduction, Kelly. Thank you very much indeed for it. So good morning, everyone, and welcome. You know, these days, everyone is searching on the internet or asking AI for answers, right? Well, if you wanted to, I suppose you could probably do the same thing about looking into the differences between ECC, WM, and EWM. And you could even probably find a baked business guide if you shared your email and that way got some information. But guess what? We're going to be going one better today because we've lined up for you this webinar. And today, Monique, Dave, and I are going to share with you around 4 main topics. We'll start looking by the differences between ECC, WM, and EWM, how to make the most of these solutions, what it means for your business, and then how EWM supports the whole supply chain process. And then, of course, we'll wrap it up with things, and we'll have some takeaways for you to remember. So to Kelly's point, let's buckle up and let's get ready to go. Dave, you ready? Monique, you ready?
Ready.
Yeah. All righty. Okay. So just to kick it off, I thought I'd start with just a few business considerations. Now, in this past week, Monique reminded us that the support for ECC WM is winding down around 2025, ECC in general around 2027. But that doesn't mean that we don't still face these business challenges or any of them are going to disappear. So we need to stay on top of delivering stuff to our customers on time, on dealing with fast and complicated business, figuring out how to be more efficient and automated, especially if we're going to keep up with or do better than the competition. So one would ask, well, then what's the plan? And essentially, it's really make the most of what you've got. And I'd suggest we look at some of the cornerstones which we've highlighted on the slide here, which suggests, upgrading the SAP system is important, making sure that we're measuring how well we're doing, finding what are those ways where we can automate stuff and as much as possible, and all the while managing the change so that we can set ourselves up to be successful down the road. So with that having set the stage, let's then dive into the first topic, which is around the main differences between ECC WM and S/4HANA EWM on-premise. And I'm going to pass the ball now to Monique and to Dave to give us some insights that can help us understand how these systems can impact our business. So let's kick off. Monique, do you want to take it away for us?
Thank you, Sean, and good morning to all. So let's start by looking at the current situation when it comes to warehouse management. So SAP gives us 2 main options to work with. Within ECC, we've got the WM module that's we're most already familiar with. And you can also use the SAP EWM on ECC, but it has to be on the SCM server. Now, when it comes to S/4HANA, there are a few different flavors for warehouse management. You have options like embedded EWM on S/4HANA, decentralized EWM on S/4HANA, a standalone version of EWM that connects to any ERP system, and the S/4HANA Cloud public or private version. Now, a key difference we can see here is that ECC has warehouse management features built right into the ERP system with a module connected to inventory management and shipping functions. On the other hand, S/4HANA with EWM on-premise handles inventory and warehouse tasks through inbound and outbound deliveries. So because there are so many different options available, we've chosen to concentrate on S/4HANA EWM 2020 on-premise for today's webinar. But no worries, we will cover a lot more about EWM opportunities in the future through our blogs, our white papers, and maybe even some additional webinars down the line. Now, with that said, Dave, can you share some of the main differences between SAP ECC and SAP S/4HANA ERP systems?
Sure. Hi, Monique, and hi, Sean. Hi, everyone. Glad you could join us. So there's a lot to talk about when we talk about the S/4HANA infrastructure. So I'll try to keep it as short as possible. SAP ECC solution revolves around the traditional client-server databases, whereas the relatively new being 2015, S/4HANA infrastructure is built around SAP's HANA in-memory database. What does this mean to us, right? At the most basic level, traditional ECC relational database system is disk-based and relatively slow than an in-memory solution, as a disk-based system needs a mechanical method to retrieve data, to store data and retrieve data from a disk. Whereas the in-memory is already the data has been retrieved and stored in memory and ready to be acted upon. The 100 DB use in memory data processing made possible because of really some major improvements in microprocessor technology and the way that we use that technology to store massive amounts of data in random access memory, or RAM as commonly known. So overall, the SAP HANA system now uses a data repository from the HANA database main memory. You couple that with the HANA table simplifications that they've added with S/4HANA, as well as the new data storage architect, how data is stored into columnar formats as opposed to row-based formatting, and EWM's use of live cache, which has enabled really noticeable system improvements in all systems running on an S/4HANA platform. With that said, let's talk about some of the functional improvements which we feel are significant and which are going to benefit customers across the board. The first one is post-processing framework, PPF. PPF is an essential tool that is used to automate warehouse activities. So previously you had a lot of the tasks that created warehouse transfer orders or transfer requirements were manually managed. With PPF, they've enabled these waves which convert delivery documents, take warehouse tasks and warehouse orders, convert them into optimal picking processes, whereby on an outbound delivery process, resources or your users in the warehouse are sent to the most efficient, are utilized in the most efficient way possible. The wave has been configured to do that, enabling performance improvements and efficiencies in the warehouse.
Right.
The next big topic is the RRF, the radio frequency framework. So RF radio frequency framework is a EWM specific tool. Most warehouses have some sort of radio frequency in use on their handheld devices or forklifted or devices mounted on forklifts. Those devices use radio frequencies allowing either the resource or the AGV, the automated guided vehicle, to move around a warehouse more efficiently while performing their tasks. RFF is SAP's tool set. It's a whole group of functions which allow you to standardize menus across devices, to standardize the transactions that are in use, and to ensure that the transactions are followed in the correct sequence. All of that functionality helping to improve the efficiency of your warehouse. I have mentioned waves previously. Now, waves primarily only used for outbound delivery processing. So the wave allows the SAP to automatically split or combine those items on a delivery. Delivery items become tasks. Those tasks are consolidated into orders, but those items are consolidated into a wave, and based on within a time frame, the wave is specified for you to deliver product most efficiently to your dock doors, so it can be shipped on time. So the wave is a very robust tool used to improve operating efficiencies. And finally, I have to talk about slotting. So if you've ever had the task of trying to reorganize your warehouse, and you may do that on a frequent basis, then SAP has introduced this advanced feature known as slotting, which effectively automates the process of placing the fast-moving product in your warehouse in the most optimal locations. So you minimize the pick time, or minimize the travel time between for a resource or a worker to pull a product and move it to a staging area. Less slow or more slow-moving product is moved to less optimal positions in the warehouse. So those are just a couple of the important features,
right,
the functionalities we thought you might be interested in. Sean, is there anything else you want to add?
Well, no, thank you, Dave, and to Monique as well. I mean, I think it was a great overview, and I think it's put us in a point now where we've got a better handle on what some of those differences are. So it kind of sets us up to shift the focus on how can we make the most then of these solutions in terms of leveraging it, integrating it into the key areas of the business, managing our warehouses, and doing so in the bigger picture of the overall supply chain. And with that in mind, I want to break down just into a couple of areas. There's 4 things I think just to consider as we continue this conversation. Firstly, we must recognize how important the warehouse is in keeping the whole supply chain running smoothly. It has an integral part to play. Second, we need to make sure that it's playing that part and helping us to meet the delivery goals so that we have a better chance of meeting customer requirements. In the third place, we want to make sure that some of these tools that Monique and Dave have been talking about, pretty cool tools, enable us to keep an eye on how the goods are moving around. And we'll hear a little bit more in a while about what some of those actually look like. And then finally, we want to talk about the value that EWM, is bringing to the table. And I mean, when we talk about that, we talk about better systems performance, automation, making things more efficient, like, for instance, the restocking processes or managing inventory, all the time being able to respond to orders in real time, and then finding ways to make the whole process of put away and picking that much more efficient. So, all right, so Monique, can you maybe then start talking to us a little bit about how we can integrate both the ECC, WM, and EWM into our operations, and then maybe Dave to talk to us a bit about how and what some of those handy tools are that are already built into the system. So Monique, you want to take that away?
Absolutely, Sean. So as a previous warehouse manager, I used to look at my operation as kind of the heart of the organization. So look at it like the warehouse is directly linked to every part of the supply chain in some way, shape, or form or fashion. So it's crucial that the warehouse runs smoothly and communicates effectively with all areas within the business. So both WM and EWM connect with all the main functional areas in SAP, as we can see here. But this slide is also showing us the art of the possible. So from sales and procurement to production planning, quality management, and even logistics and transportation. The opportunities that come with using EWM are endless and will optimize the warehouse and drive the business value. So let's take the connection between EWM and logistics transportation, for example. By integrating transportation planning for inbounds and outbounds, load plan integration, and aligning the distribution execution, we get accurate information that lives within SAP. This gives the business the power to make informed decisions and reduces the need for last-minute fixes or extra costs for expediting materials. And we all know what firefighting feels like. Now, in support of that, an effective warehouse management system must have the tools for internal visibility to provide managers with a true picture of how accurately the warehouse is operating. In the ECC space, this level of detail is given through tools such as the Warehouse Activity Monitor, which highlights those critical processes within the warehouse. We also have things like shelf life control lists that gives us the ability to manage those materials with expiration dates. And the capacity management tool that provides visibility to scale the picture of space utilization within your facility. So these tools have served me and many warehouse managers very well. But Dave, could you share some of the awesome tools that EWM can provide to support operational efficiency?
Sure thing, Monique. So you can talk on these tools for hours, but I'll try and keep it as short as possible. For me, the Warehouse Management Monitor is probably the most important tool that you're going to have for logistics management in your warehouse. It enables you to look at your entire warehouse and all operations within the warehouse, whether it's inbound or outbound, whether it's something happening in your value-added service area, whether you have a material flow system that has problems. So in all, it's an overview constantly being updated of everything that's happening in your warehouse. You can actually, through the Warehouse Management monitor your resources, find out where they are, what they're doing. You can even ping them with a message and say, hey, get a move on, you're slow, or move to a different aisle. So nice features, really, really powerful features, interactive features, as well as being able to report on historical data. So you can pull out ops data. Why did you miss? Try to understand why you missed certain deadlines. All of that is encompassed in this Warehouse Management Monitor. In addition, there's additional functionality in the shipping cockpit function, which is really a dispatch manager's or a dispatch person's responsibility, giving them a view of incoming as well as outgoing deliveries and shipments, and what's on his dock door, what needs to be processed, if there's a truck that you need to locate. It's all managed through the shipping cockpit. As a warehouse manager, the alert functions that you find either embedded within the Warehouse Management Monitor or as a separate function gives you heads up of processes that are maybe overdue, right? So you get overdue orders, overdue deliveries, something is happening that you need to be aware of. So the alert monitor is your tool to manage that information. So Sean, that's really in a nutshell what we would feel is important. Do you have anything else?
Thank you. No, Dave, thank you very much. I mean, just to emphasize, I think maybe what you and Monique have already shared with us, there's significant power clearly in the EWM functionality, and that in and of itself holds great value to the business. And that's part of the message that we need to be taking back and sharing with the business so that there's an awareness of exactly what this does for us and what the capabilities look like and how it's going to enhance our business. And I think it brings us to that next question about what are some of the things that we should be thinking about as we look at this potential move out of WM and into an EWM space. But before we go into the benefits of what that looks like, let me maybe point out a couple of things around challenges and maybe some of the outside factors that we need to consider. The first one, I think, is around the transition is complex. And I'm not talking about technology complexity per se. SAP has many tools to help manage complexity of the technology and can make our transition that much easier. But it's also going to take some learning and most definitely some changes to how we do things. And that means re-educating people, and it means changing business processes. And therein lies complexity. It comes straight to the fore. Then there's the issue of customizations. Now, anyone who's ever attended a Reveal webinar knows that we try to avoid, let me call it customizations. I'm not talking about built-in user exits, which is part of standard SAP. But we need to be smart on how we handle these things so that we can keep the costs down, make the best use of what we already have and what's built into the system, and then make changes such as user exits when that is needed and when it's appropriate to do that. And then on top of all of that, we've got other stuff that we need to think about, like what are the regulations? What's keeping up with support and demand and updates, etc.? How do we do that? What are the costs involved? Things like licensing, training, and so on. But even with those challenges, there is good reason for doing this, right? And Monique, I'm going to ask you, would you mind maybe just take us through what you see as the core benefits that's going to make all of this worthwhile at the end of the day?
Yes, sir. So, Sean, I see 5 main benefits that we'll reap when transitioning from WM to EWM. Number 1, you'll have better control of your operation overall, a more seamless integration across SAP modules and cross-functional areas, so the communication and the flow is a lot better in EWM. You'll have efficiency gains and improved functionality, more robust reporting and analytics, and a scalability for future growth and expansion. So this leads me to the practical considerations in terms of the organizational focus we will need. So when your organization makes the decision to switch from WM to EWM, it is crucial to carefully analyze and select the right solution for your business and then have a clear plan for execution. So this means you will need planning and analysis internal to the warehouse and coordination across different parts of the business. A few things you need to consider are, number 1, the need for executive level leadership engagement. Executives need to help choose the best version of EWM that will bring the business value. So they need to be embedded in this process of planning before selecting the solution. Ensure they understand how each solution supports the integrated supply chain network. And they also need to understand the level of effort required for migration between systems and the process changes that are going to occur post-transition. Mm-hmm. Secondly, I want you to think about it being very critical in implementing a change management program. So again, switching between new processes, using a new system, this is going to impact everyone across the business. So with this transition, there will be new terminology, new processes that everyone needs to learn how to do. So it's really important to make sure everyone is on the same page. If people don't follow the new processes correctly, it can lead to problems like system errors, definitely slowing down your supply chain, and inaccuracy in your data reporting. When you don't have buy-in and understanding at all levels within the organization, people will pick up bad habits that contradict the change. So protect your investment. Lastly, you need to consider the cost involved with implementation. This includes things like infrastructure changes, additional software that may be required, certifications for the team, and ongoing maintenance and support needed post-implementation. That all needs to be taken into account as you calculate your cost.
Thank you, Monique. I think that's, you really set that scene so well, I think, in terms of organizational impacts and so on. But I think even beyond that, then Dave, aside from focusing on the organization, what do you think are the key things that we need to make sure that we do successfully as we move from WM into the EWM space?
Well, thanks, Sean. Thanks, Monique. Yeah, very good description of what has to happen. From a practical point of view, the movement of your data from a WMS system, that's an ECC environment, WMS system, or even non-WMS system, can be achieved directly into an S/4HANA embedded EWM system using the Fiori app known as the Data Migration Toolkit. This is a app that you get with the S/4HANA implementation. It enables you to move data in one of 2 ways, either through a direct connect to an ECC system, where you set up an RFC connection, And then you can, once you've completed all your configuration, you've set up your storage types and storage sections and activity areas, you then want to bring your data across the bin structures or your inventory balances. You can do that directly, pulling data directly from an ECC environment. And secondly, the alternative way of doing it is using a traditional way of flat files. Now, the data migration toolkit has a number of templates, probably in excess of a couple of hundred. Some of those are to bring product across from one environment to another. Some of those are to bring your bin structures across. But those templates are pretty easy to use. They're well structured, and they guide you through the process of filling a file and then uploading that file into the destination, which is EWM or S4HANA. Does that cover it sufficiently for you, Sean?
Yeah, well, thank you, Dave. I mean, I think that's perfect, and I like the way you called out. You know, we always talk about complexity, and there are but you know, when you have an ability to use templates and things to make that journey easier, that's always heartening, because then otherwise it looks like there's this huge mountain of a problem that actually stands ahead of us. So I think so, very much so, and I think that's also a perfect lead into the final topic, which is around how does EWM support the integrated supply chain process. And so, Monique, I'm going to bounce it back at you and ask you to kick off this piece of the conversation and let it go. Thank you.
Sounds good. Okay, so we are here, and we can see. Did the slide change? I'm sorry. Thank you. We can see the supply chain network alongside key components that make it all work together in that integrated way we speak of. So we know the supply chain network is meant to be a high-performing, well-oiled machine. Again, remember that the warehouse is the heart of this organization, so it has to run efficiently. EWM optimizes warehouse operations by providing new and improved functionality that simplifies things like inventory management in both the DC and in your production areas, a better inbound and outbound delivery processing, and simplified cross-docking processes that improve order fulfillment and customer wait time. Okay, so let's talk more about how to handle our warehouse efficiently. From this slide, you can see that EWM has a bunch of tools that help us see what's going on in the warehouse within the four walls of the warehouse clearly and accurately, a good picture. And remember, Dave mentioned earlier that the inbound and outbound deliveries are key in EWM. They're serving as a gateway that connects EWM to the rest of the supply chain process. This is a huge value add in the EWM because it makes it easier for information to flow through the whole network. That means we can see what's happening along the way, and we can trust the data that comes along with it. There's also the resource and labor management feature, which helps managers plan and change the workload for their team to keep operations running smoothly. And a value add that your production managers will absolutely love is the advanced production integration. Yeah. It uses production material requests to automatically move materials to where they are needed for production and coordinates with other parts of the business to ensure the supply chain is running well and smoothly. Now, Dave has a few more good examples to share on how EWM can support the integrated supply chain. So Dave, as a warehouse manager, you can surely appreciate the enhancements that EWM has to offer. Can you share a couple of tips that help you manage in an integrated way?
Yeah, I'll try. So the new functionality that we're talking about is around, I mean, highlighted here, we can see there's labor management, slotting and rearrangement, standard material flow systems, task and resource management. All of those are really important additions to your warehouse functionality, just to make it operate a bit more efficiently. As a manager, you probably need an integrated real-time labor and resource reporting tool to manage, plan, measure, and improve your resource utilization in a warehouse. For the more advanced operations, the material flow system integrates into third-party 3PL pick and place systems through PLC, programmable at a PLC level, which is programmable logic controller. So you're actually talking to machines at an assembler level, which is a pretty efficient way of moving product around within your warehouse. In additional features you might get excited about are the goods receipt look ahead that you can get, or the expected goods receipt, which enables you to make decisions about where the product is. So if you're doing an availability check and you haven't, the machine, the equipment hasn't been received on dock or is not available for sale, you can look at the expected goods receipt to provide answers on when material is available. Additionally, the opportunistic and planned cross-docking are very important features within EWM. Opportunistic cross-docking is what happens on the dock. Planned cross-docking happens in a planning system, but enables you to more efficiently assign incoming product to outbound deliveries without having to put it away into a warehouse. So that's it in a nutshell, Sean.
Well, good. Thank you very much. Okay, well, folks, I think we've done really well in the timeline that Kelly gave us. We've reached the end of the webinar. I want to say thank you to Monique and Dave. You guys have given us such rich food for thought, so thank you for that. Much appreciated. And now it's really time just to sum it up. And what I want to suggest is that there are three areas. The first is your starting point. So based on where you are in your decision-making process, you're either going to be continuing in that ECC environment with WM, or you'll make the move that Monique mentioned around EWM on a separate SCM server. The alternative then is into S4HANA, where there's a bunch of opportunities available for us, from embedded EWM, decentralized, and then, of course, the cloud opportunities, both public and private. Now, I would suggest there are three things that you want to consider. The first are the business benefits in making the move and the complexities. And when we talk complexities, remember, we're talking people, process, and technology that you're going to need to manage as you go forward. There are some external factors that need to be managed, and that relates to compliance, it relates to SAP support, it relates to cost. And then there's the very important organizational change management dynamics, which Monique referred to, which is really essential to success at the end of the day. And then lastly, then from a next steps point of view, choose the right solution for your end state. And in that process, ensure that the executives buy in and support the process. They're going to be fundamentally important to your cause at the end of the day. Protect that investment by ensuring the adoption of change into the new ways of life, because you're going to spend money, time, effort, and let's make sure we continue along that journey as we go forward, and then understand the related costs for that transition, both from an implementation point of view and from a sustained point of view. So with that, thanks again, Dave and Monique. You guys were absolutely great. Kelly, I'm going to hand it over to you to kind of bring us home.
All right. Thanks, Sean. And thank you, David and Monique. That was fantastic discussion on the key differences between S4 and ECC's warehouse integration. Your insights were extremely valuable and helpful, hopefully for the audience. We do have time to take a few questions from the audience. And if you haven't had a chance already, go ahead and submit your questions in the Q&A section. And I'm just going to go ahead and start with the first question that we have, which is, can we implement SAP EWM and integrate with SAP ECC and then later upgrade the whole system to S4HANA? Or would you recommend upgrading to S4 first before implementing EWM?
I'll take that question if you wish, Kelly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so there's a variety of options open to you on this path. So SAP ECC can talk to an EWM system as through supply chain management. If you remember the old APO supply chain management EWM system, so you can connect it through the core interface, creating integration models and passing data from the ECC environment through to an EWM environment on an SCM box. Additionally, you could run you could run S4 EWM as a standalone solution. And then you almost treat it like a decentralized system where you're passing data between ECC and the new EWM system via IDOCs, as well as through the core interface. Some of the transactional data and some of the master data moves through either the core interface or through an IDOC, and you treat it as a decentralized system. And then, of course, you could run the EWM system independently of your ECC system and then do the upgrade to S4 at a later date. I hope that answered your question, Pramod.
So, David, I think one of the things with that, I mean, if the journey is going to S4HANA, then it really does sound like it makes sense to combine that effort and make that transition as part of your S4 journey. I think there was a piece of the question that I heard in there was, do you need to wait for one versus the other? And you've clearly given us options that you don't necessarily. But if you are on that journey and you are going to that, it might make sense to see how you could align those and set out a roadmap. In putting that together, what's the roadmap look like? And then one will get to see exactly where that lands at the end of the day. And we take a lot of time, actually, when we help customers to build roadmaps and show how that would best maybe play out. But good. Thanks for that answer. Kelly.
All right. We have a couple more questions. Is the master data structure OFR-EG bins the same in EWM?
So the when you say master data structure, you're talking about the bin structure. Yeah, your bin structure, you can replicate that bin structure that you have in ECC directly into an EWM environment. Who asked that question? Because maybe we need some dialogue on this one to understand.
That would be Morton.
Oh, Martin.
Morton.
No, Morton.
Oh,
Morton.
Just clarify. So so when there are transactions within EWM that allow you to pull your bin data directly from a ECC environment directly into EWM. You can also set up your master data through the data migration, the Fiori app, the data migration toolkit, which allows you to to structure it, because you have material master in ECC, you have product master in EWM, but ECC automatically distributes when you enable a product to be EWM managed. The S4 system automatically distributes that material master data directly into the EWM product master, so you don't have to do anything. There are additional fields that you have to maintain in an EWM system on the product master. There's additional information which you're going to need, but essentially, if you want to bring across a bin structure, you would do that either through the EWM transaction, or you would do it through the Fiori data migration toolkit. I hope that answered your question.
Thanks, Dave.
Thanks, Dave. I do have one more question from the audience, and that is, what happens to the developments previously done in ECC WM when upgrading to EWM?
Okay, this is a tough question. So the S4 upgrade has a method of identifying what is the changes that you need to make to your code. So if you have built code in ECC and you want to move that code into EWM environment, then you run it through this ABAP. Forget the exact terminology, but you run it through an ABAP program, which will advise you what you have to change to make it conform. Table structures are going to change. Some of the coding will have to change. It'll advise you what coding change you need to make to bring it into the S4 environment. The enhancements, a lot of those enhancements are not available in S4 at this point. You may find them, they'll be adapted or adopted in the next couple of releases. But most of the code that you're going to have, if it's not too complicated, If it's not too complicated, then it's relatively easy to bring it across into an S4 environment.
Thanks, David. And I think we have one more question, and that is, I would love to know how EWM has enhanced the physical inventory process. What are some of the upgrades from WM to EWM as it pertains to conducting physical inventory? Monique, I think this one is meant for you.
Right up my alley. So again, as a warehouse manager, we used to have things such as the zero stock check, if you remember. So you go in, you pick a part, and then it'll do a zero stock check to make sure that bin is empty. That was in the ECC version. What I love about the EWM piece is, number one, you have a feature called the low stock check. In the low stock check, a parameter can be set to your liking. So let's say it would be the last 3 items in the bin. You can check before it gets to 0. And this is helpful for any warehouse manager because you want to know beforehand if the inventory is low or if there's an issue prior to waiting until you're supposed to be at 0. So features like that, and then it actually activates a inventory in the background when you're conducting the pick or the task from location. And that's an actual inventory accounted for in the system. So there are a lot of upgrades when it comes to the inventory management process. But again, those little features that they added are going to move mountains within your warehouse operation.
Well, that was our last question for today. So thank you all. And if we if you have any other questions, feel free to reach out to us. We're happy to reach back out and let you know any information we can. And I just want to remind you, we have our upcoming webinar in this series, and it's going to cover end-to-end supply chain and finance integration. And that's going to be on June 19th. And you can register on the website, or I also will pop a link here in the chat for you, and you can click right into there. So thank you all again for joining us today, and we hope you found this webinar informative, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, guys.
Have a good
Thank
day.
you. You're right.
Thanks,
Cheers,
everybody.
everyone. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye now.